And now we go live to Venezuela, to the National Assembly that is holding the second discussion on the amnesty law. Let's listen at this moment to the statements of deputies. 115 years of independence, 165 of the Federation, and 27 of the Bolivarian Revolution. Today, from here, we rise this project of agreement in the voice of all Venezuelan youth that we fight on a daily basis for the homeland. We are here standing firm, and we will keep fighting. This is all, Citizen President. We were listening to statements of the presentation of this bill of agreement in the plenary session of today that has to do with the first point of the agenda, the legislative agenda for today's session. Concise, clear of our deputy, Cesar Perez. Now I'm going to give the microphone to Deputy Angelita Mayo. Please, you may speak. Let's recall that if you're joining us at this moment, this is live images from the National Assembly in Venezuela that has to do with the presentation of an agreement to mark the Day of the Youth that coincides with the march, the demonstration that is taking place in Caracas. For me, a day like today would be very easy to speak on the things with which I'm not agreeing with the Bolivarian government, but if we agree, or myself agrees with, is that the country demands more from ourselves, not from hatred, not from the hard feelings, but from the reflection of what is the country that we want to build, the country of Venezuelans and privileges. It is the country in which we are putting aside conflicts and hatred. Today, the homeland demands more than that, demands a high position in political aspects, and also transparency and honesty in resolving the problems. Venezuela requires consensus to build a political class that is coherent and sustainable in time. It requires tolerance, it requires respect, it requires, above all, to have the capacity of believing truly in that plural Venezuela and Venezuelan opportunities. It is no time for the majority that is present in this National Assembly impose their ideas over the rest of the people, or today, the moment that Venezuelans are living through. We need to take advantage of it to make that the history of this nation is nothing more than the conflict and the hatred and the useless debate. It is time that for all politicians to assume their responsibilities of every speech, and we need to halt the hatred. And from my generation, it is time that the Venezuelan youth takes this opportunity. Order, deputies. Thank you, President. It is time as well that the youth have the responsibility of being the interpreters of our own times to build the future stability of the nation. Venezuela can't handle a new scream, a new battle. There has to be a change of behavior on a daily basis in the way in which we relate ourselves. Since Bolivar left this world, we are not willing to follow the ideas of any empire. We have lost so many lives, and I wish I was speaking just about time. Today, an error from this National Assembly from this political class, it is going to have a high cost. If you have a recognition, the sector that I represent, the Democratic Alliance, is for maintaining a conscious speech over the years, speaking of reconciliation, of dialogue, of peace, even when that do not generate popularity on social media. If we are due to be recognized, is for being a rebellious person, but also for having a high political stance. If our political leaders from the Democratic Alliance is for spending 5 years drawing the peaceful solution of Venezuelans, solution that the national government didn't bid for it and remain stuck to an unfertile dialogue. Now we are having a sincere dialogue and an honest dialogue. It is imperative to speak on the problems of the citizens that have nothing to do with the problems of the politicians. It is imperative to end the intolerance of the judicial abuses, and we need to speak without paying Venezuelan migrants and to occupy ourselves to reunify the Venezuelan family. Today the expectations are very high, and that is why we have to put ourselves into the work. I was 5 years ago standing in this very same parliament speaking about dialogue when it was not popular, speaking about reconciliation when it was uncomprehended, and even in that moment without doubt, I said the same thing today to acting President Delcy Rodriguez. Let's call for a great dialogue, political dialogue with the Venezuelan youth. Let's call for a great, true and plural dialogue in which all of us are represented. Let's look into our eyes and into the problems of the Venezuelan people that decided to stay here in Venezuela to work, but also to insist in the construction of a Venezuela of respect, of tolerance. And let's look into the eyes of those young Venezuelans that, in spite of being awakened from very early in the morning, still do not have guarantees to buy a house, a car, or even to reach the next month. It needs to be part of the national agenda, and also the rising of the social services and the retirees payment, and also the money for the students, the university students. Acting President, it is imperative that we speak with the Venezuelan youth. That's the most important dialogue that must exist in Venezuela, because it is going to be the youth of Venezuela, the ones that are going to be in charge of building the stability of the future generations. 1 minute, Deputy. But likewise, I also call this National Assembly to debate a law of opportunities for the Venezuelan youth, and the debate to be open, wide enough, so all of us are represented. I've said this before and I repeat it today. Venezuela does not belong to a political sector, and we cannot let ourselves to give the back to our liberators for that sacrifice that they did for us. Today is overshadowed by the personal aspirations. Today, Venezuela, there is a youth that is ready, that also is ready to defend the interests of Venezuelans with respect, with tolerance and plurality, because the Venezuela that we want to build is that Venezuela of coexistence, but among all, of development and well-being and opportunities for future generations. Thank you, Deputy. No one else needs to speak at this moment. We're going to close. We are closing. Also, I hope that all deputies also speak in the following point of our agenda. In consideration, the honorable deputies that are in favor of approving the agreement of commemoration of the 212th anniversary of the Battle of Victory and the Day of the Venezuelan Youth, please raise your hands. It is approved by unanimity, by qualified majority. Approved by unanimity. Next point, Secretary. Second discussion of the amnesty law for the Democratic Coexistence according to what is established by the Article 106 of the Interior Reglement of the National Assembly. This is the second point. Thank you, Secretary. I'm going to give the floor to Deputy Jorge Arreaza, that is, who is the President of the Special Commission for the drafting of the report for the second discussion of the amnesty law for the democratic coexistence. Microphone for the deputy, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, President. And Second Vice President. Congratulations. Today is the Day of the Youth. For all the youth of Venezuela that have been actively participating in this consultation of a law, such a needed law, so necessary, that we ratify today again the coherence and the sense of the political moment of acting President Delcy Rodriguez to propose it, not just like a general amnesty, but also with a last name, amnesty for the democratic coexistence. We have assisted in these past 6 days of work into innumerable meetings, assemblies, and we installed ourselves on Friday, February 6th, and we deployed ourselves throughout the national territory. On Saturday, we received the institutions of the administration of justice of system to the leaders of the powers in charge of administering justice in Venezuela, and we received their proposals directly. That same afternoon, we met with a group of non-governmental organizations that had a trajectory in the activism for human rights, and we listened as well to every proposal, to any suggestion, to any initiative, and also we incorporated a good part of what it was proposed. On Sunday, we were with the judges of peace, justices of peace of Caracas. They are the great mediators in the territory, but also it was transmitted for all justices of peace through CGTV and through other means, and that derivated into a group of assemblies as well that I'm going to mention here. On Monday, we had a deployment, such as the members of the commission, like also as deputies, legislators, councilmen and women from throughout the country, and we thanked their willingness to incorporate into this process with a huge sentiment to discuss this law. Even in the Guyana Esequiba, there was an assembly to discuss, to debate, and to make proposals to this bill. On Tuesday, we received family members of detainees, of inmates. The meeting lasted for 6 hours, consecutive hours. We listened almost 100 interventions, and their initiatives and their circumstances are being considered as well. We also met with victims of the political violence of the 2013, 2014, 2017. We listened their strong testimonies to losing a child in flames, for example, the lady Inés Esparragosa, and that no one among those present, and besides the one that is from abroad, not even helped her child, her kid, as he was set on fire. But also we listened to statements of victims from 2014, from 2017, from 2013 that lost their kid, their children, their wives and their husbands, and they have no hope of seeing them again. Also, we were working in the commission. Mr. President, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all of the members of this commission, without differences from any party, for their compromise, with also the Vice President Nora Bracha, and also the parliamentary group she represents, and the parliamentary group of the Democratic Alliance and deputies, and also the parliamentary group of the Homeland, for a discussion, such a sincere discussion, assuming the new political movement. There was debate, a good debate. We are coming out from a meeting at this moment when we were given the final details, the final touch, but we also search for consensus for the people of Venezuela that deserves a law with which we all are happy with. Just to end this statement, in numbers, the numbers that we're going to hand over of the process of consultation, we have in hand 1,700 initiatives handwritten, but also we are receiving more initiatives to this amnesty law. And as I said, we perform assemblies throughout the nation in the 25 states of the nation, but also it reports Magistrate Tania D'Amelio just a few moments ago that the justices of peace were also motivated by the meeting we had, the commission on Sunday, but last Sunday, and they did in 2,267 communes processes of consultation of this law, in which there over 25,000 neighbors, women and men, participated in these assemblies. And there's a special thanks for the Justices of Peace for their task. And I want to confess at last that to search for consensus, there are people who say and are signaling that they have had so much patience for the debates, lasted for as long as it was needed, and it has been worth it. And we did so, as we were mentioning, when you presented the law, of that Commander Hugo Chavez that arrived on the 13th and 14th of April of 2002 with his Christ. I also called his daughter Rosa to ask where that Christ was, and she said he has it in her pocket, in his uniform. And I have one very similar that Admiral Carmen Melendez gave me, and I had it with me in my pocket for it to shine on us and to lead us on the path of consensus and dialogue, and to favor the new political moment of understanding and reunification in the homeland of Bolivar and the homeland of that youth that today is marking an anniversary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Deputy. I'm going to give the floor to Deputy Nora Bradshaw, Vice President of the Special Commission designated to draft the law for amnesty law for democratic coexistence. You may have the floor. Good afternoon, Mr. President, colleagues, parliamentary colleagues, Venezuelans who listen to us at this moment. Today we are not voting just for a single law, we are voting an opportunity, a historical opportunity for the country. Venezuela has left years of confrontation, persecution, and social fracture, and it has left jails, exile, and there have been families separated for reasons, some of them political. There have been profound pain in Venezuelans, and when a nation goes through this level of rupture, the answer cannot be simply to move the page. It must be the justice with a future-nary vision. That is why our parliamentarian group, Libertad, insisted in something fundamental, an amnesty without missing parts, an amnesty without reparation, an amnesty with memory is fragile, and that is why we have put so much heart in working in this law. The reconciliation is not erasing history, it's dignifying. It is not closing our eyes, it is to look at each other as a society. It is not surrendering before the conflict, it is overcoming it. Today, we send a clear message. Venezuela can correct. Venezuela can construct, build agreements that transcend beyond our differences. To the victims, we want to speak to them directly and with our hearts. This law is not pretending to substitute their pain, nor minimizing what we have been through. No law can do that, but it represents a path towards recognizing that there were a fracture, that there were affectations, that the Venezuelan state has the duty to guarantee security of Venezuelans, but also that never again it is utilized the power to follow those who think differently. That path that never again is not rhetoric. We are firm today in ratifying that Islam must be wide, that it must include everyone, those political inmates, to the exiles, to the persecuted, to those who think differently, those that for political reasons are abroad from our space and our vision. To legislate, to debate, to represent is not to create a battle. It is having a clarity in the principles and flexibility as well in the mechanisms to reach those principles. Venezuela needs stability for there to be a democratic transition that for Venezuelans can dream with a future that offer them opportunities. Venezuela needs as well to close the cycle of persecution, of harassment, that the only thing it has attracted are a painful moment for the country, for all Venezuelans, for you and for us, and for those who are watching us from their homes. This law can be a point of beginning, the beginning point for a different chapter, for an era in which the respect for the Constitution and the democratic coexistence is the rule and not the exception, in which having different opinions must not be a motive of persecution, in which pluralism is a strength and not a threat for anyone, in which no one has to feel fear for expressing their opinions, for thinking differently, for having a political stance. The history is judging those parliaments not for their intensity. 1 minute, Deputy, thank you. But for the quality of their decisions, and the amnesty law is going to be could be an important step forward for this parliament in Venezuela. We ratified that today. We need justice, and we are betting for the encounter of the whole nation. We want peace with memory. We want a deep change in the institutionalization of our nations, and that the victims and their families, we are speaking to them directly, and the civil society, to the organizations of human rights and the universities. We say today, thank you for all of your suggestions to this law. We hope that the final result is the one that it was expected, and it is a collective achievement. Today we support the majority of these initial articles, with the conviction that a better nation is possible, with the conviction that the future of Venezuelans cannot be a hostage of conflicts. We hope that it is open an era of respect to dissidents, and that all of us understand that all of us can coexist in the nation. I insist, in spite of our differences. A chapter of pluralism and respect of the freedoms of Venezuelans. That's what we wait for. The country is watching us. Thank you very much. As a license, given the importance of this debate that we have been holding about this bill, we gave the floor to the President of the Commission and to the Vice President of the Commission. There are two different visions of the same process that we have been having in thousands of assemblies and thousands of opinions compiled in the hundreds of assemblies held throughout the nation. But we want to highlight that it is needed that the second discussion corresponds for the discussion of article by article. It is not a moment to open a debate. Given the importance of both of their statements, that is why we gave the floor to the President and Vice President of this Council as a license of our board of directors. Now we are going to jump into the process of discussion of the project of this bill. In consequence, Citizen Secretary, please read the inform that corresponds and do so, highlighting as well the titles, the chapters, the articles, and the seasons. We suggest to approve without modification the title of the bill that is redacted as follows: Lay of Amnesty for the Democratic Coexistence. This is all, Mr. President. In consideration, approved. Next. Second, we suggest to approve with modification the nomination of the Article 1 that is written in the same terms. Objective. That's all. In consideration, approved. Second. Third, we suggest to approve with modification the content of Article 1 that is written in the following terms. Article 1. This law has as the objective to give a general amnesty and plain of the crimes committed in the framework of the facts and the environment that we include in this law, to promote social peace and democratic coexistence. This is all. In consideration, approved. Deputy Antonio Carri. Yes, Mr. President, colleagues, deputies, it is very important to ratify the spirit of this law in its Article 1 and the concepts and most important concepts of this law. Given the immense discussion and the braveness of having listened to all of us without exclusions, this article has a great importance. There were changes and modifications for this article to widen the law. The objective of this law is to put an end to fear in Venezuela. This is the most important thing. And to put peace and social peace and democratic coexistence goes through as well for not having fear, to put an end to arbitrariness and to mistreatment. And one of the greatest things that we find as a result of this commission and the work of this commission that I also congratulate today is the immense patience of the President and the Vice President, of both of them, of assisting, and also all of the members of the commission of assisting victims of both parts. And this is very important to the families of the political inmates and also the families of the victims of this event. They had one common element, and it is very important one, that almost all of them, 90%, represented one single social class. That seems like there is a common victim of this conflict, and that is the Venezuelan people. That is why it is necessary that this law becomes a great instrument for coexistence. But this law is definitely the braveness of the consents and coexistence. This is very important that the country knows, because of the importance and transcendence that of the things that we are debating here. That's the state to renunciate to the power of sanctioning, that here we have a spirit of reparation, not of rupture. We have no spirit of rupture. We have a spirit and a national consensus to repair victims from both sides. That also evidence the immense deterioration of the judicial power and the citizen power. We have today the braveness of consensus. We have today to have the braveness. It is not yelling at each other from one side to the other. Braveness is when two people that are very different look at each other's face and they are capable of reaching consensus and consolidate themselves in favor of the homeland. Here we have order, deputy, order. Just to say, President, and I'm finishing with this, please listen to me. Thank you. The second discussion of our report corresponds strictly to what it is included in the articles, titles and chapters of the bill, and also in benefit of the peaceful coexistence and democratic coexistence, we had committed some errors that also cannot be extended. Please follow strictly to what it corresponds from an internal reglement, that is the content of the article. To finish, thank you, Deputy. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy. In consideration, Article 1, deputies that are in favor of approving Article 1, just as it is included in the report, please raise your hands. It is approved by unanimity. Next point of the order of the day. Sorry. Next. Fourth, we suggest to approve with a little bit change that Article 2, finalities. This is all in consideration to the epigraphy. Fifth, we suggest to approve with modifications the content of Article 2 that would be read in the following terms. Article 2, this law has as a finality, first, to contribute to the promotion of peace, democratic coexistence, rectification, and national reconciliation. Second, to generate the conditions that favor the development of the national life, public tranquility, the democratic participation and pluralism. Third, to promote the use of democratic mechanisms and constitutional mechanisms to assess the differences that may arise within the society, and also to prevent that the events of the amnesty to repeat themselves again. Fourth, to favor the reintegration to the public activity of the people benefited with this amnesty law. This is all. Thank you, Secretary. In consideration, Deputy Pablo Perez has the floor. No? Okay, perfect. In consideration. Approved. Sixth, we suggest to approve with modification the nomination of Article 3 that is reading in the following terms. Principles, this is all. In consideration to this fact, approved. Seventh, to change Article 3 that would be reading in the following terms. Article 3. This law is following the principles of and values of life, freedom, justice, promptness, equality, solidarity, democracy, and responsibility, social responsibility, and in general, the preeminence of the human rights, ethics, and political pluralism. This is all, President. In consideration, Article 3, Deputy Nicolás Ernesto Mauro Guerra. Article 3. To incorporate peace as a principle and value, fundamental value. This is all. I do agree. Let's vote with this adjustment made by Deputy Mauro Guerra. Deputies who are in favor with the redaction of Article 3 incorporating the word peace inside the values and principles that rule the law. Those who are in favor of modifying this article, please raise your hands. Approved by unanimity. Citizen Secretary, please incorporate the term as one of the principles that aim the following law. Next, we suggest to approve the nomination of Article 4 that would be redacted in the following terms. Order, public order, and general interest. This is all. In consideration of this aspect? Approved. Next. Ninth, we suggest to approve it with modification the content of Article 4 that would be redacted in the following terms. Article 4. The dispositions of this law are from a public order and general interest. This is all, President. In consideration of Article 4, Approved. Next. 10th, to suggest with modification, to approve with modification Article 5 that is redacted in the following terms. Principles of interpretation. This is all, President, in consideration. Approved. Next. 11th, to modify the Article 5 that would be redacted in the following terms. Article 5. In case of doubt in the interpretation or application of this law, it will be adopted that benefits respect, protection, and guarantees of the rights of human rights, including the principle in the review pro reo. This is all, Mr. President. That principle, please, lawyers, help us. It is due to be written in Latin. Go ahead, Deputy. Yeah, the principle is in Latin and means that in case of doubt, that would be in benefit of the inmate. And also that article has a constitutional base in Article 24 of the Constitution. It was an object of wide debate in the Commission. We held that if this is a constitutional norm, it do not require to be established there, but in benefit of consensus, you can not use it in Latin, you can use it in Spanish, President, without problems. Deputy Florida, please. Deputy Correa. In Article 24, as Deputy Iris Valera says, at the end, when there is a doubt, it will be applied the norm that benefits the inmate, and not that snob word of inubia pro reo in Latin. Please go ahead, Deputy. Yes, President. Also, in my personal opinion, I also have confusions with this word, but it is not that bad. Please repeat yourself. Also, I find controversial this word in Latin. It is not in favor of the inmate. It is in favor of the accused. That's the translation. It is not for that who is inside a jail, but for the accused, for the defendant. And we use it in Latin is that for it to favor the accused, not the inmate. But that discussion you would have had it in the year 1999 when you discussed the constitution of the Bolivarian Constitution. I'm only in charge of the translation, yes, but the Article 24 of the Constitution says inmates. Well, I'm not saying otherwise. It is not contradictory to the constituent spirit, but in benefit of what you said, that you don't like the word of Latin because you remember priests, what I'm explaining is that it's in favor in the accused and not the inmate. So you cannot put it, including the principles contained in the Article 24 of the Constitution. Well, yes. That is valid, perfectly. Well, we could have saved this time. In consideration, doctor in law, that you just finished your PhD, please, Pedro Carreño. I finished it in 2012, President. I just finished it. Life is an eternal knowledge. President. By establishing the process of transformation of the law in this house of the law, we need to understand that in strict right of the Constitution that establishes the law. That is why all of the laws need to be in accordance with the content of the Constitution, that is the maximum norm. And in that case, that it is not included in the constitutional room would declare the duality of the Constitution, of the norm. But as the norm says, what is in abundance, we can add it in accordance with what is established in the article, or according to Article 24 of the National Constitution. We are developing the principle. This is all. Thank you, Deputy. We have a new redaction, a new proposal for the redaction of this article. The guarantee of human rights in accordance with what is established in Article 24 That is how it will be. In Article 5, in any case of doubt in the application of this law, it will be adopted that guarantees the human rights according to what is established in Article 24 of the Bolivarian Constitution. In consideration, deputies who are in favor of this redaction, ultimate redaction, please raise your hands. Approved by unanimity. Next. 12. We suggest to approve with modification the nominee of Article 6 that would be redacted in the following terms. Temporary environment. In consideration of this aspect, approved. 13th, to approve with modification the content of Article 6 that would be redacted in the following terms. Article 6, the amnesty that contains Article 1 comprehends all of the actions and omissions that constitute felonies or faults committed between the January 1st of 1999 until the moment in which this law is passed. This is all. In consideration of Article 6, approved. Next. 14th, we suggest to approve with modification the nomination of Chapter 7 that would be redacted in the following terms. Personal environment. In consideration with this aspect, it is approved. Next. 15th, we suggest to approve with modification the content of Article 7 that would be redacted in the following terms. Article 7, the amnesty object of this law includes the people who could be processed and condemned for their alleged or proven participation in felonies in the framework of the actions of amnesty for as long as this right or can be put into effect after the effectiveness of this law. Give me a second, Secretary. Let's recall that if you are joining us at this broadcasting at this moment, we are seeing live images to the second discussion of the amnesty law for the peaceful coexistence of the nation as established by the internal norms. It is subjected to discussion article by article. Let's listen. This article would be perfectly redacted until the part where it says the events object of this amnesty. We need to put a point, and if this is an amnesty that has an object for the democratic coexistence and is objective, if the democratic coexistence, then I have to go from the part of the full respect of the Constitution, and that would let us for this article to collide with part of the Constitution. First, Article 21, that is the equality before the law. Everyone is equal before the law. And second, Article 49, number 2 of our Constitution, that also has to do with what it means that everyone is innocent until it otherwise is proven. So what is happening with this article, that when you say for as long as they are in the right, you are saying that the person that is going to be benefited with this amnesty law, when it's put himself or herself in right, you are signaling it as a guilty person. And according with what we've seen during the discussion that also this council have been working with much responsibility and rigor in meeting that we held with families of the victims and with victims, and many of the people who are persecuted by the people. We have a huge problem, judicial problem. Look, Article 2 of the Constitution, I wish we could put it here, that says Venezuela constituted itself as a state of law and justice that proposes as higher values, justice, freedom, peace, etc., etc. That article and the spirit of that article is what it must prevail and must regulate the amnesty law, because there are the rights of all Venezuelans as equals, and that is what we are claiming. So we are, in this article, we would ask, of course, in first case, if the redaction can be left until that point whether we are mentioning to approve it unanimously, or on the contrary, we would have to not offer our vote. Thank you, Deputy. I'm going to give the floor to Deputy Iris Varela. Thank you, President. Good afternoon. What a regretful it is to be in a spirit of coexistence and to listen to voices that suddenly seems to not recognize that here on numerous occasions it has attacked the Venezuelan state. This is the magnanimous actions of the acting president that is proposing 1 month after of a bombing to the Republic, proposes an amnesty law and calls for coexistence and calls for dialogue. And right away they are portraying themselves as voices in which we would like to trust, like coexistence, but if there's something in which all Venezuelans coincide, is that what President Nicolás Maduro said, that is the peace of the nation. We are living at peace because President Nicolás Maduro in 2017 called for a national assembly for peace. And that is why we have peace in the country, a peace that would have been on numerous occasions to be vulnerated, to be attacked, with the coup d'etat of 2002 against President Hugo Chavez, afterwards with the oil stoppage, and then with guarimbas during that decade of the 90s. Then there were the episodes of the elections of President Nicolás Maduro in 2013, then the terrible 5 years of the Assembly of 2015 towards 2020, with all of that entails. Here we have had even an assembly that extended their period, and today self-recognize themselves as deputies, and they are receiving money from stolen money from the public budget. So here it seems like no one wants to hold that these people not even recognize the crimes they committed. It is good because those who launched the bomb against the nation was the United States. Okay, they launched it, but they also blocked us. But who are the ones who asked for that? Who are the ones who allowed that? Who are responsible for the victims of these attacks? Where are the victims? There is only those who are detained, but are also those who were killed. Why, when we speak about victims, you not recognize the process that here in 2002, during the coup against Chavez, they hired mercenaries from El Salvador, and the ones who brought those mercenaries to the nation are hidden away from justice, and those snipers, they killed 800, and they killed hundreds and also wounded hundreds of people. What happened with the guarimbas of 2017? What happened with Orlando Figueras? What happened with Gisela Rubilar? That from time to time you can see the grotesque manipulations in which they are put in as if they were victims of the Venezuelan state. They are not. They are victims of the violence that are looking today for an amnesty, and that today they have not even the humbleness of recognizing that the state, even in the midst of the attack, they are giving a pardon for their crimes, seeking for the peace of the nation, which is a common desire. Order, deputies of opposition, Deputy Varela, please conclude. I'm concluding, President. This Article 7 that establishes clearly that the amnesty holds includes the people who are condemned for their felonies, always as they are in front of their rights. You cannot amnesty that unrecognizes the crime they committed. Those who committed no crime don't have to ask for amnesty. That is simply as that. Those who want to be amnestied need to recognize their crimes. And that is all this thing of this debate that has brought us quite a debate that we are proposing for it to be maintained just that it is this article. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy. I'm going to give the floor to Deputy Stalin Gonzalez. Good afternoon. Please, Carolina Garcia, also, just to solve this dispute and to reach an agreement, because the amnesty law, the first thing that it has is a mutual compromise of searching an agreement, because otherwise it's going to be difficult. There have been many years of no consensus that we are not going to solve, but we need to try for this to be a first step to solve many problems that we are going to have to solve throughout this path, using the legislative technique and the memory of the amnesty law of 2007, in which the President of the National Assembly was the Vice President, that signed. I was 3 Vice Presidents because they fired me 3 days after that. They fired me because of the amnesty law, perhaps. Well, okay, President, or because they lose the reform. We'll never know. The thing is, the reform, we didn't lose that. If you like, we can recount the votes. You yourself said in your last speech the small victory that opposition got in that moment. But this is not our debate now. In article, if we leave it until amnesty and we add in accordance with the Constitution, I think it would englobe what we are discussing. This is all. Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Carolina, please. My answer is from a judicial perspective. In the principle of the law, all of us are equals before law. We have a majority of people who are on their way in their judicial processes that would be also benefit with this reform and with this law. And how could we explain that people from abroad come here and that they are going to be arriving in the nation already amnestied, while there are people who are actually in the process, in this judicial process? If we leave this article until amnesty, I think you would need to think better the redaction, because we will be leaving behind a group of people that are also, of course, abroad and are hidden, and to give them the opportunity, as the redaction said, that put themselves in right after the passing of this law. In the judicial process, there are reiterated sentences in which they are prohibited of trials in absence of the individuals in accordance with the Constitution. The presence of the defendant is fundamental for the trials to decide on their petitions. This is all, Mr. President. Thank you, Deputy. General Commission, Deputy Arreaza, Deputy Nora Bracho, Deputy Ruben Lima, and who else? It has been many years, many hours of debate, of seeking a consensus, of leaving behind protagonism, because what it is at stake is the peace of the nation. And if we want peace, there must be justice. And for that, the judicial system of Venezuela must work. And I make this small reflection because here we consider that there are no Venezuelans from one class or second class. We are all equals before the law, and all of us we need, if we want that, is to give a vote of confidence to this bill. If we want, what we want is to transmit to the nation that we want to reinstate the state of law of the nation. And we spoke about this in our long conversations and activities we had, in which all of the deputies, not just a single sector, all of the deputies, we made our greatest effort to make our proposals. Many of that, we also took them off the table when we thought about them, and in the search as well of a consensus to achieve this law. We also are going to agree for this article to be maintained. I know what it is for in the face of social media and for the attacks of what they label as, because unfortunately I reject categorically as a father of family the label that they put on ourselves, on Venezuelans for many years. Venezuela did not deserve to be living under that circumstances, and if I have to remain strong to receive the benefit of amnesty, I know I'm trusting in what we are doing, the deputies, I'm trusting in what we are doing to save the country, to tell the country that the path needs to be different from confrontation and differences and protagonism, and leaving behind all of the interests that we may have. And I think that this is a very serious situation. The bench of the Democratic Alliance, understanding the importance of this historical event that it has for the nation, and also that we want to continue betting for the rest of the path that remains on driving. I aspire for this law. I aspire for this law to be voted, all of the deputies here present today, for the responsibility that we have with the country to finding the path of trust, of hope and faith, because there are thousands of Venezuelans out there waiting for this law to be approved in the greatest consensus possible. Thank you, Deputy. I'm going to give a brief right to the word to Deputy Maduro Guerra. Please come over here, the President of the Commission, Jorge Arreaza, and Vice President Jorge Arreaza, and also the Deputy Stalin Gonzalez, and Deputy Pedro Carreño, and Deputy Ruben Limas for the General Commission. Thank you, President. And it is Varela. Go ahead, very quick. When you make a mistake, when you make an error, and and I'm going to speak as a Catholic, Father Richard, when you sin from my home, I did not absolve myself. I need to go to church. I need to confess myself. I confess, Father, that I sin. You have sinned, son. And during that confession, in that facility of the church, I confess myself. I did this, I did that. I put spice spicy food in my brother's food. I remember that was a sin that I committed when I had 14 years old. So it is important, the ritual of saying, I came to this state of law, and I do recognize that we are under strong institutions that have prevailed, that have supported the Republic, and that today, in spite of everything of it is said with a bombardment less than a month ago and the kidnapping of the first authority, civilian and military authority of the country, and his wife, here we are in this National Assembly wanting to give concrete steps towards a coexistence, a democratic and peaceful coexistence that have taken a lot for us to achieve. And also Dr. Rafael Calderas demanded recognition for the state of law. The amnesty in which Enrique Mendoza was benefited, and also Leopoldo Lopez, and also Deputy here present Enrique Capriles. I remember because I had 17 years old when he went to the tribunal. We have two constitutional supports. If we are evolving through the Article 29, that of the inmates, 24, that it has the same idea. We also can summon up the article of the Constitution that refers to this, and the organic law of that demands the present trial. Here we have a proposal for the reduction. The consensus of benefit would be responding to the procedure of the state of law, of the competent institutions of the public power, respecting the principle of the state of law. This is our proposal. Thank you, President. Thank you, Deputy. Look, I would like to put an example to feed this discussion. At this moment, currently in the United States, 120,000 Venezuelans who demanded a figure that is called TPS to achieve many more, 600,000 Venezuelans in the United States that are demanding and said that they asked the U.S. residency because they were political persecuted in Venezuela they said we were persecuted by the regime of Nicolás Maduro. That's what they declare when they try to enter to the United States. And for political reasons, they are like 100,000 Venezuelans at least. That means that there are 100,000 Venezuelans that because they divorced for economic reasons or for whatever reason they arrived there, and there were institutions that had this file declaring for them to declare as a political persecuted. In that case, there could be benefit from this benefit. Could benefit themselves from this amnesty law, perhaps because they are also declaring themselves as a political refuge. Or am I wrong? So it is necessary for us to separate both circumstances. So we would have to be there, those 100,000 people, and it is absurd. It is even absurd that the people of the United States, the government of the United States, have proceeded in that way, and it is absurd that there are institutions, legal institutions in the United States are multiplying because of just to get revenues from them, $10,000. How money didn't they acquire from this? So we have to go deep into this amnesty law. We have a sentence, and it's sent by Deputy Carolina from the. It is necessary that the people that was accused was to be subjected to the state of law of Venezuela to solve their petitions, because the constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, in there it is not allowed the trial with the absence of the defendant. We are opening a path to extremism that do not want this amnesty law, that do not want a process of democratic coexistence, that do not want to load their stances, and that received a benefit of freedom. And the first thing that he published, "I'm going after you, you bastard," the first publication he did was that "I'm going after you," and that I don't know what it suggests to the climate of coexistence. A post such a post, and there is the people who do not want the peace for the republic, and they are entering as nothing. No, here we are denying the possibility for the imposition of a state of law, of peace, of coexistence, which is the main principle of this amnesty law. In consequence, to not extend myself, here deputies Arriaza, Deputy Bracho, Carolina Garcia, Stalin Gonzalez, and Pedro Carreño, Rubén Lima, Eri Varela, and Jose Gregorio Correa as well. Please. If you're joining us at this moment of this broadcasting live from Venezuela, is the debate that is being generated at this hour from the National Assembly of Venezuela during the discussion of the amnesty law. We have been seeing throughout this legislative day, they have discussed about 6 articles of this bill that also during the presentation, during the first discussion, was approved by unanimity by all deputies of the National Assembly. In this day, we have been seeing the proposals of deputies regarding the modification of some articles of this legal text, such as it is allowed by the National Assembly statutes. And also during the second debate, this proposal is presented before the deputies. This is a very important process that is taking place after the initiative proposed by acting President Delcy Rodriguez as a way of achieving a democratic coexistence in the nation. The law, if it is approved, is going to also pave the way for a very long process of national reconciliation. As we could see, there are different opinions among all deputies, among all branches of the Parliament of Venezuela at this hour, but there is a common goal, which is to achieve peace, to also achieve tolerance and unity among diversity, among divergence in political stances of the nation. This is the spirit of national reconciliation that has been proposed 1 month after the brutal attack perpetrated against the nation on January 3rd, that also left over 120 victims, fatal victims, and also that led to the kidnapping of President Nicolás Maduro, and also to the kidnapping of deputy and also wife of the president, Celia Flores. This is a crucial moment, and let's recall that was already discussed in a first discussion held last week, also at the heart of the National Assembly headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela, and it was unanimously approved. Ever since that first approval, that first discussion, there have been hundreds of assemblies nationwide in which there were compiled over 1,000 initiatives from the population, from the communes, from the people in general. Also, after a process that was favored as well by the creation of a council, a special council for the drafting of these laws. So today what we are witnessing is the second discussion of the bill of amnesty, the amnesty bill that has been proposed by acting President Delcy Rodriguez, in a space as well in which it is a historic moment for Venezuela that is going as well to pave the way for the national reconciliation in Venezuela. There will be no room to extremism, to political violence, to foreign attacks. The lack of understanding led the nation as well to divisions that were some of the statements that were previously affirmed by the very own deputies of the country. And thanks to this proposal, there is going to be a shift in this new chapter for Venezuela. Yes, President, thank you very much. The debate, it has been good, and I can speak on about our ideas, and with the aim of keep debating and discussing this article, the bench Libertad asked the deferment of article number 7. This is all. Thank you. And also the discussion of that. Deputy Jorge Arreaza. Thank you, President. To maintain the needed climate of conciliation, of consensus, we are going to approve that be deferred today from the rest of the discussion to avoid to fall in unnecessary debates and to approve the law in the upcoming session of the National Assembly. Thank you very much. Take a seat, deputies, and I call the order to consider this. In consideration of the National Assembly of Venezuela, deputies who are in favor of deferring the discussion in second instance of the bill of amnesty for democratic coexistence being approved until article number 6, please raise your hand. Deputies are holding, or we're holding the second discussion of the Amnesty Bill for the reconciliation of the nation at this moment. These were a truthful discussion at this moment. Deputies agreed to postpone the approval of the amnesty law for a new session, new ordinary session of the National Assembly, so it remains as well. This is a very intense debate that has the common purpose of reaching a consensus, of reaching the true spirit of reconciliation that demands Venezuela in the current scenario, in the current political chapter.